So the full set list for Inferno X has been revealed as of Friday the 19th of September. This is going to be ours as well as Japan's next mainline set after Mega Evolution. It'll be releasing in Japan next week on September the 26th, and it won't be releasing for us until about mid-November, I believe it is, November the 14th or 15th, around that time. And this set is not very big, it's actually pretty small. It's going to be roughly around 90 cards. That is also including the cards from the Mega Gengar EX and Mega Diancie EX battle decks. As yes, we will be getting them as a separate product, but they will also be inside of Inferno X, very much how the Steven and Marnie cards were inside of Destined Rivals, as well as having their own product. And I will also be including those cards in this video, as they will be part of Phantasmal Flame when it releases in November. But for now, we're going to go through the main set of Inferno X. This video may be long, it may be short, heavily depends, because again, this set is very, very small when compared to other sets that we currently have in the game. First up on the list is Vileplume. This is a 150 HP grass Pokemon with the Pollen Bomb attack. For 1 grass energy, it does 30 damage, and then your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned and asleep. And if you've played back in the black and white era of Pokemon, you'll know very well a card called Hypnotoxic Laser, which did kind of the same thing, it both poisoned and put your opponent's Pokemon to sleep, but the asleep was on a coin flip. But this has been put onto a stage 2 Pokemon that also does damage, but it only requires 1 grass energy, and plus we have stuff like, you know, the new grass stadium in the format. I can't remember the name of it, I think it's Forest of Vitality, which can just put you straight into a Vileplume very later on into the game. You can basically just put down an Oddish, evolve it into Gloom, and then evolve it into Vileplume, attach grass energy, and you're ready to use the attack. Plus Poison and Asleep are probably 2 of the best status conditions we currently have in the game, because we have a lot of cards that boost the amount of poison damage you do, and Asleep is also just the most annoying status condition, as basically your active Pokemon just can't do anything, it can't attack, it can't even retreat. I also think it can't use its ability. So you're basically just putting a lockdown on your opponent's Pokemon while it slowly ticks away from poison damage, forcing them to use a switch card because again it can't manually retreat. But there is also the coin flip that you do between turns to see if the Pokemon wakes up. So if you hit heads, then you know, good for you, but if you don't hit heads, then it's going to be pretty bad in your favour. And then second attack is alright, it's another grass energy, and it does 60 damage plus an additional 120 more damage if this Pokemon was healed during this turn, and grass does have quite a few ways of healing its own Pokemon. But I think the first attack is just that little bit better, plus again we have Forest of Vitality, so while this is a stage 2, you can go into it very, very easily, especially after your first turn, because Forest of Vitality doesn't work on your first turn. But after your first turn, you can just again bench Oddish, go into Gloom, and then go straight into Vileplume and start using this attack. Pretty powerful card. Next up is Mega Heracross EX. I'm going to admit, this card kind of isn't good. 2 grass energy, 100 damage. If this Pokemon was damaged by an attack during your opponent's last turn, this attack does that more damage. So if you're hit by a pretty big attack, then you can retaliate back for even more damage. But if you're hit by a pretty small attack, you're not going to get that much of an attack boost, and 2 energy for 100 damage is not very good, and his second attack kind of isn't much better. It does 170 damage for 3 grass, and then you discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. It's like kind of too little damage, especially because we have some, you know, basic Mega Pokemon that just do more, and there's just better grass Pokemon out there. The first attack, I guess, could be pretty useful in some situations, like say it gets hit by, I don't know, your opponent bosses it up and then attacks it with something that does a lot of damage but doesn't kill it. You could put 2 grass on it and then retaliate back, plus it's a grass, so it has advantages over grass weak Pokemon, and second attack can one-hit KO some grass weak Pokemon. But there are some Mega EX Pokemon that just have a little bit more HP than double 170, which is only 340. It's like the card is just like very mid, it's not very good. But it's an EX, so it's worth talking about. Next up, Ludicolo with his Excited Healing. Once during your turn, if you have a grass Mega Pokemon in play, you can heal 60 damage from one of your Pokemon. Could see play alongside something like Mega Venusaur as a way to basically make it more tankier, as you can just heal it every turn, and if you have multiple in play, then you can just heal it more than once. Could work well with the Vileplume for using its second attack, but again I just think its first attack is a little bit better. Just another piece of grass support, and grass support is always about healing, it seems. That seems to be the main theme for grass decks. So this card could see play, but you are putting another stage 2 line in your deck, which, you know, could end up being a bit bricky, but with the help of Forest of Vitality you can very easily just go into this. It's decent, but it's nothing amazing. Next up we have Genesect with its Bug's Cannon. Choose one of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack does 20 damage to it for each grass energy attached to this Pokemon, but you don't apply weakness or resistance for benched Pokemon. So again, another card that could see play inside of something like Mega Venusaur, as you can very easily just move all of your grass energy onto it, and it does 20 for each grass energy onto any of your opponent's Pokemon, so you can very easily bench snipe something, but it doesn't apply weakness or resistance, so if you want to knock out an EX, you're going to have quite a few energies on it, but if you're just knocking out like a random basic, like say a random support Pokemon, or maybe a second attacker your opponent's trying to build up, or maybe something like a Duskull or a Dusclops that you're kind of worried about, you can very easily get rid of that. Pretty decent, you know, one prize attacker inside of grass decks, especially with Mega Venusaur being able to just move it wherever you want. Next up, Mega Charizard EX, another EX that, I'm going to be honest, isn't really that good. Its attack, Inferno X, for 2 fire energy, says discard any amount of fire energy from among your Pokemon, and this attack does 90 damage for each card discarded in this way. 90 damage for any amount of fire energy is, you know, very strong. You only need to discard a couple to build up quite a lot of damage. There's already a better version of this card called Raging Bolt, and Raging Bolt can discard any energy it wants, and it's not a stage 2, it's a basic, and it doesn't give up free prize cards. Then again, it's only weak to water, and I don't really think there's any water decks in the format at the moment. Plus we don't really have that many Pokemon that can accelerate a lot of fire energy into play. We do have Emboar, which can, you know, attach as many energy as you want from your hand to any of your Pokemon, all that kind of stuff. I believe it's only fire energy. I'm going to be honest, this card doesn't really seem that good, plus you can't even pair it with the other Charizard, because the other Charizard attaches free fire energy from the deck. It's like, yeah, you can do what, 9, you can do 270 if you discard 3 off of it, but then you would have to evolve one of your Charmeleons or Charmanders into this one, and then you're playing a mismatch of stage 2s. So I genuinely think this card isn't really that good, to be honest, just in my opinion. But a fire card that is good is Moltres with its Fighting Wings, does 20 damage, then if your opponent's active Pokemon is an EX, does 90 more damage, so if you attack an EX, it does 110 damage for only 1 fire energy. Pretty good card actually, considering we have a lot of support Pokemon in the format like Genesect, and we also have Goldengo, and we also have Tealmask Ogerpon, which this card can hit for weakness on. It won't one-hit KO Goldengo, but if you have any form of damage boost, it can very easily one-hit KO a Goldengo. Pretty strong, one prize attacker that can just take care of many support Pokemon. Plus, if you've damaged something and you weren't able to KO it, you could instead put in your EX Pokemon in harm's way. You could bring this up and do the remaining amount of damage if it's an EX Pokemon. Pretty good card. Next up, Oricorio EX. This is supposed to be the main partner for Mega Charizard. Its ability, Exciter Turbo, says as often as you like during your turn, if you have a Fire Mega Evolution Pokemon EX in play, you can use this ability, attach a basic fire energy from your hand to one of your benched fire Pokemon. So again, this is supposed to be the main partner for Mega Charizard EX. As long as you have a Mega Charizard EX in play, or just any Fire Mega Evolution, then you can just attach as many fire energies as you want from your hand to your benched Pokemon. Can't attach to the active. It's like alright, but it does require you to have a Mega Evolution fire in play, so if you don't have one, the card just doesn't really do anything. Plus, it's pretty flimsy, 190 HP, this thing can very easily be one-hit KO'd, and that's just an easy 2 prizes, so it's like, you can very easily get rid of this, and then Mega Charizard EX just falls apart really, and if you get rid of Mega Charizard EX, this thing is just completely useless and can't do anything, which is one of the main problems that the deck will probably see if it sees play, which I imagine it might do to a very small extent, but I don't think it will do very well. But if we do get some more Fire Mega Evolutions in the format, this card could pair very well with them, especially if it's a basic Fire Mega Evolution. Like, we already have stuff like Camerupt, but that isn't like too good. Maybe this could pair with it, I don't really know, but if we get more in the future, this could be a very nice partner for them, especially considering we've had the reveal of the Kalos Mega Starters. We could get a Mega Delphox, and this could be a good partner for it. If it's a fire type, it could be a psychic. Next up, Piplup. This card's pretty interesting. It's 1 colorless energy, call for support, search your deck for a supporter card and put it into your hand. Pretty good, gonna be honest. Like, this could see play in just whatever really. It's pretty much our only way of searching out a supporter, unless you have a Pokemon that does it by itself, or you're playing something like, what's it called, Pokegear. But you know, this could just see play inside of whatever deck. You know, you go second, you don't see a supporter, attach an energy onto it, can search a supporter for next turn as long as you don't get hand disrupted. Very, very good card, very interesting card, and just could end up being a pretty good staple. Next up, Rotom EX with its multi-adapter ability. Your Pokemon with Rotom in their name may have up to 2 Pokemon tool cards attached to them. If this Pokemon loses this ability, discard Pokemon tools from your Pokemon until they have 1 left. And then its attack, Thunderbolt, does 130 damage, discard all energy from this Pokemon. Pretty bad. But this card could pair very well with the Rotoms that we've seen in the past. Specifically the Rotoms from Destined Rivals, because they all have different names, so you can have multiple copies of each one. And their attack, Gadget Show, does 30 damage for each Pokemon tool card attached to all of your Pokemon. So with Rotom EX in play and a bunch of other Rotoms, you can just attach an endless amount of Pokemon tool cards, and for each one you have in play, you do more damage. You could attach a plethora of different stuff, maybe some defensive stuff to boost its HP, or, you know, damage boosting stuff so you do even more damage. There's plenty of different tool cards out there. Is this going to become meta? Probably not, but Rotom is a pretty decent rogue deck that, you know, does more damage for each tool card you have in play, and with this you can just attach even more tool cards, and we do have some pretty good tool cards in the format, plus you have a wide range of different types to cover certain weaknesses. Pretty interesting, but it's not going to be, you know, meta defining. Next up, Miss Magius EX with its Swirling Spell ability. If this Pokemon is in an active spot, when your opponent switches in a new active Pokemon, it is now confused. Very interesting piece of disruption, so you could basically like lock something down in the active, and then if your opponent switches in something new, it's going to get confused, so they have the risk of flipping a coin when they want to attack, which will basically force them to bring up something else on your field, so that when they do switch in, it doesn't get confused. Pretty decent form of disruptive ability. And then its attack, 6 magic for 2 psychic, does 150 damage, and then you can draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. Damage is very, very low. You're going to be like free-shotting EX Pokemon, but its ability is pretty interesting, I guess. Next up, Zacian for 1 psychic and 1 colorless. Its limit break attack does 50 damage, but if your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining, it does 90 more damage for a total of 140. Pretty decent amount of damage, but like 140 damage if your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining is pretty decent. You've got a pretty decent 1 prize attacker for the late game that can 1-hit KO like a couple of stuff, and if you've done damage to an EX Pokemon, you could bring this up in its place and take the knockout without giving up a 2 prize or even a 3 prizer. It's pretty decent. Next up, Paldean Tauros with its Fighting Charge. For 1 fighting energy, it does 40 damage for each damage counter on all of your Pokemon with Tauros in the name in play. Very, very strong considering we have the new Stadium, which says that if you put a non-dark Pokemon into play, you put 2 damage counters on it. And in the format, we do have regular Tauros as well as Paldean Tauros. So while they do share the same name, you're going to basically have to play 4 of this as your main damage dealer and then 4 of the other Tauros, so that you can put damage counters on it and easily build up your damage. Plus it's for every damage counter on it, which is also, you know, pretty good. I can't think of any ways in the format we have of placing damage on our own Pokemon except with the new Stadium. So you could, you know, bench one of these, bench another one, and that's what? It's like 160 damage already just for benching 2 Pokemon, plus it's only 1 energy. It's pretty interesting. Plus you could pair it with something like Monkey Dory, so you can very easily move damage off if you need to build up some extra damage, or if you weren't able to hit a KO, you could move the damage and then take a KO. If we have other cards in the format that let us put damage counters on our Pokemon, then this could be a very good rogue deck, or just a very good, you know, single prize attacker. Next up, Weavile. I already mentioned this card in my Toxtricity video, so I'm going to go very briefly over these cards. If you want to hear more in depth about them, then I would recommend checking out that video. Weavile's Claws of Retribution does 20 damage, and if it has 50 HP or less, it does 170 more damage for a total of 190. Very, very strong for 2 Darkness Energy, pretty good. We have Mega Sharpedo EX with its Greedy Fangs, 70 damage, and then you draw 2 cards. But it also has the Hungry Jaw, which does 120 damage, but if it has any damage counters on it, it does 150 more damage for 270. Very, very strong card there, and it's something I'm possibly looking to build for when this set comes out maybe. This one is new, which we haven't looked at, Seviper with its Excite power. If you have a Dark Pokemon EX in play, this Pokemon's attacks do 120 more damage to your opponent's Pokemon. Its attack is 3 Darkness Energy for 120 damage, 240 damage for 3 Darkness Energy. Gonna be honest, not very good. We also have Krookodile, which Revenge Fang 60 damage. If one of your Pokemon was knocked out by damage during the last turn, it does 160 more damage for 220 damage. On stage 2 for 1 darkness is, pretty strong, but there's just better options, I'm gonna be honest. And then of course the main Pokemon, Toxtricity. Bad Upper, once during your turn you can search your deck for a basic Darkness Energy and attach it to one of your bench Darkness Pokemon, and if you do, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. It can very easily fulfill a lot of these Pokemon that get a damage boost from having less HP or having damage counters on them. So you can very easily just fulfill your energy costs and then get damage on that Pokemon to help boost up its damage. Combine it with something like Monkey Dory to move damage off. This card is very, very strong. I made an entire video about it, so if you want to hear more about it as well as all these other type Pokemon, then make sure to check the video out. Next up, Empoleon EX with its counter stance. Prevent all effects done to this Pokemon by the attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. Very, very strong protective ability. Then its attack, Metal Phaser for 2 metal and 1 colorless, does 210 damage, and then during your opponent's next turn this Pokemon takes 60 less damage. Very, very strong card. Not only does it have built-in protection, it does decent damage and then also takes less damage during the next turn. Plus, it's a metal Pokemon, and we also do have some other cards in the format that reduce the damage metal Pokemon take, like we have that item card coming in Mega Evolution, so this could end up being a very, very tanky Pokemon. Next up, Archelodon for 3 metal energy, coated attack, does 120 damage, then during your opponent's next turn this Pokemon can't be damaged by attacks from opponent's basic Pokemon. So this card could see play in Archelodon decks, as if you're up against a deck that only plays basic Pokemon, like Raging Bolt, instead of evolving into Archelodon EX, you could evolve into this. You can just swing every turn and not get hit by anything. Pretty decent. It'll probably maybe see play as like a 1 or 2 of inside of Archelodon, or it maybe just won't see play and I'm just waffling nonsense. Next up, a Wigglytuff. With its round attack, 40 damage, this attack does 40 more damage for each Pokemon in play that has the round attack. And we actually do have quite a few Pokemon in the format that have the round attack. We have the entire Seismitoad line from Black Bolt. I think it's Black Bolt or it might be White Flare, it's one of the two. But basically you can just bench a bunch of Timpoles, evolve into this, and then you're doing 40 damage for each Pokemon with round. I believe that also includes itself. Yes, it also does include itself. So with 6 Pokemon in play that have the attack round, you're doing 240 damage. Pretty strong. Jigglypuff, the pre-evolution, doesn't have round, but I know every single stage of the Seismitoad line, Timpole, Palpitoad and Seismitoad do have round. So this could end up being a pretty strong rogue deck. Next up, Linoon with its Excite Dash. If this Pokemon is on the bench and you have a Pokemon EX in play, you may use this ability, switch this Pokemon with your active Pokemon, and its attack for 1 colorless does 70 damage. Pretty interesting Pokemon. It would be nicer if it had free retreat, because it could basically help you get out of retreat locks, or if your active Pokemon's asleep or afflicted by a status condition, you could very easily switch into this. But I guess we have stuff like Rescue Board, and we have stuff like Air Balloon, so you can very easily attach that onto it, bring this up, and then just retreat it back out. But it does require you to have a Pokemon EX in play. It doesn't have to be the active, you just need an EX in play. So it could be a very nice, switch in, but you do have to play the pre-evolution Zigzagoon, so you need to evolve into this in order to get that free switch, compared to other stuff we've had in the format like Keldeo EX from Black and White era, which could just rush in, and then with a Float Stone you can just retreat back out. It's decent, but I'm not sure if it's going to see play. And then next up, a Mega Lopunny EX. With its Gale Thrust, 60 damage, and if this Pokemon was on the bench this turn, this attack does 170 more damage. Very similar to a Gliscopod we had during the Sun and Moon era, where if it moved from the bench to the active it did more damage, and plus 170 more damage for a total of 230 for 1 energy is, very strong. So you could very easily just use Switch, or maybe give an Air Balloon to something, maybe even use Linoon, and then just, bring it into the active and hit a lot of damage. And then Spike Hopper does 160 damage, and this attack's damage isn't affected by any effects of your opponent's active Pokemon. The first attack is just a bit better, but it's still a pretty decent card nonetheless. Right, now moving on to items, trainers, supporters, all that kind of stuff. First up we have Jumbo Ice. Heal 80 damage from your active Pokemon that has 3 or more energy attached. It's like kind of mid. Heat Burner, you can discard a basic fire energy from your hand to use this card, choose a Pokemon tool, special energy or stadium in play and discard it. It's alright I guess, but we have stuff like Tool Scrapper which can very easily just get rid of tools. Getting rid of special energies and stadiums is pretty good. Sacred Charm, the Pokemon this card's attached to takes 30 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon that have abilities. Pretty decent. I don't think we've had many attack reducing stuff in the format. We do have Rigid Band, but that's only for stage 1s. But this only accounts for Pokemon with abilities, so Pokemon that don't have abilities will still do max damage. Grimsley's Move, again I mentioned this in the Toxtricity video, this card is extremely powerful. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose a dark Pokemon you find there and put it onto the bench. Put the other cards on the bottom of the deck, but you can't play this card during your first turn. Doesn't say basic darkness Pokemon, so you can put evolutions or anything like that. You could put a Mega Evolution straight into play. Any dark Pokemon. Very, very powerful card. Another very powerful card is a Dawn. Search your deck for a basic Pokemon, a stage 1 evolution and a stage 2 evolution. Put them into your hand, shuffle your deck. Is this a power crept version of Hilda? Not really, because Hilda can search energy and an evolution, plus it can search special energy, but this is also a very, very strong card for evolution decks. Plus it can just search a basic Pokemon, it can be a basic EX Pokemon, it's not limited on that. A stage 1 evolution and a stage 2 evolution, so you're thinning your deck by 3 cards, which is really, really good. So just a very, very strong piece of support for evolution decks. Very, very good card. Fire Breather, search your deck for 7 fire energies and put them into your hand. Is this good in Goldengo? I don't really know. It seems pretty good. I guess it's meant to play well with Mega Charizard X, but again, I just don't think that card's very good. But if we do get some very powerful fire decks, then this is just a very easy way of searching out a lot of fire energy. Next up, Battle Coliseum. Prevent all damage counters from being placed on bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, by the effects of attacks or abilities used by your opponent's Pokemon. A bit late to be getting this, but like, it does really help against Dragapult. It also does stop Munkidori. Even though Munkidori says move, it technically takes the damage off and then puts it on something else. So I imagine that this is probably going to become maybe a staple stadium card, or maybe if we get into a very, very, very heavy Dragapult meta, this will become a staple, and then maybe Dragapult will fall off, then people stop playing it and then it comes back. So I imagine this is probably going to be a very strong stadium card that might end up being thrown in every single deck of the format just to stop these Munkidori shenanigans and also to stop Dragapult. And then very briefly going over the Mega Gengar and Mega Diancie decks, we have Mega Gengar, Shadow Hiding whenever one of your dark Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an EX Pokemon. Your opponent takes 1 less prize card, pretty good attack. And then Void Gale, 230 damage moving energy from this Pokemon to a benched Pokemon. It's mandatory, so you have to do it, which is a little bit annoying because then you'll need to reattach an energy onto it, but then again you could just put it on another Mega Gengar and then bring that one up and then put that one back on the other Mega Gengar. The ability is why this Pokemon is seen play. It's already seen playing stuff like Charizard and Grimmsnarl just to turn them into 1 prize Pokemon. Very strong card. Another strong card coming from that deck is Sableye with its Angry Claw, 20 damage, and if you have a stage 2 dark Pokemon in play, it does 70 more damage for 90 damage. Pretty decent, 1 prize attacker. It does have 80 HP, so you can't buddy poffin into it, but it is a pretty decent 1 prize attacker. We also have Punk Helmet, which says if the dark Pokemon this tool is attached to is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack, you put 4 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. Very good at, building up a little bit of retaliation damage, and could also get you in range of some KOs that you're just out of range of. Mega Diancie EX, this Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks, and then its Garland Ray does 120 damage. Discard up to 2 energy from this Pokemon does 120 damage for each card discarded in this way, so you can discard 1 or you can discard 2 for 120 or 240. It's like, alright I guess. Alcremie for 1 Psychic does 20 damage for times the number of Pokemon you have in play, so 120 on a stage 1, it's alright. It's nothing amazing, but it is a pretty decent 1 prizer. And then we have Wonder Patch, attach a basic Psychic energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Psychic Pokemon. We don't reprint Dark Patch, but we instead print a Psychic type version. Why do we do this? And that is it for this video. Overall the set is okay, there's nothing really standouts, so nothing really amazing. I guess the supporter cards are pretty good. Pokemon wise, there's some pretty decent stuff coming out. I'm very much looking forward to how the dark Pokemon play out. That's something I'm looking forward to building. And then we also just have some generic good stuff here and there. Again, it's a pretty small set. There's nothing incredibly standout, like Mega Charizard being the main flagship of the set isn't really that much of a good card, but there are some pretty good cards inside of this set. Let me know your thoughts and comments, what you think about this set, what you're looking forward to from this set. what you're looking forward to building from this set, or maybe upgrading your current deck, so on and so forth. What cards are you looking forward to picking up? What secret rares, illustration rares, full arts are you looking forward to collecting? Because they haven't announced many at the moment, but I am very much looking forward to maybe a Weavile illustration rare, or a full art for the Dawn supporter, or even the Grimsley supporter, if I decide to play dark type decks. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that nonsense. It really does help out the channel, and your support is greatly appreciated, and take care.